Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Line update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
We're continuing to provide the autopsy from maybe the greatest loss in the history of Penn State football this past weekend. Penn State losing on the road to previously winless UCLA. The Nittany Lions have now dropped out of the top 25. They are unranked. We are still reacting to this loss this past weekend. We're going to dive into James Franklin's press conference from Monday, some of his comments after the UCLA game. There's still just a lot to unpack from this Oregon and UCLA stretch for Penn State, Justin. Now that we both kind of had a couple days to sit on it, and you especially, all your contacts within the team, around the team, what have you been hearing? What's the vibe, and what are your takeaways as we sit here now?
I think like everybody else, a little shell-shocked, right? You're shell-shocked on not even thinking you're capable of coming out and playing like that, right? I mean, you talk about one of the worst losses in his 12-year tenure. I mean, whenever that happens, it's a surprise for everyone. So I think there's a recalibration that needs to happen amongst the team, amongst the coaching staff, and how we're going to approach the rest of the season. Because like we mentioned earlier, they just moved the game a couple weeks from 7 p.m. at Kinnick Stadium, which is a tough game.
Yeah, the Iowa game is now
the Iowa game. Yeah. And if you don't stay on top of what's going on, I mean, this season can turn ugly fast if you can lose a game like that to UCLA.
Clearly, the team, the staff, everybody allowed one loss to snowball into two. And we talked about it in the recap episode after the UCLA game. And thank you to those of you who joined us live on our YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe, rate us, turn on notifications. And if you'd like to get all past and upcoming episodes of State of State ad-free, commercial-free, follow the link in the description of this podcast. Just 99 cents a month, no ads, no commercials, nothing. We talked about in our recap episode is that there is still a very slim fraction of a percentage point that Penn State can make the college football playoff. All you have to do is win the rest of your games. And that doesn't look that easy anymore, considering you went into this game against UCLA favored by 24.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. So the task ahead of you is to right the ship against Northwestern this coming weekend, go on the road. I've said it for years, at Kinnick, maybe the two scariest words in Big Ten football. And then the four scariest words, I say, would be at Kinnick at night. So that'll be an interesting game on October 18th. You get a bye. Then you have to go play what is now ranked as the number one team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes, in Columbus on November 1st. You host Indiana on November 8th. So that stretch is just brutal. You play Michigan State. You host Nebraska, which now after this UCLA game, the Nebraska game doesn't look as comfortable as it might have looked a month ago. And you end against Rutgers, which is throwing the ball all over the yard and has actually been able to score some points with Ethan Kaliakmanis. So I say all this to say, if the stars align and you do win out the rest of the season, you build a lot of confidence and momentum if you're able to beat Ohio State on the road, beat Indiana, beat Iowa on the road, beat Nebraska in your house. Like, all of those things could propel Penn State, but just the chances of that happening feel so slim right now. And Justin, I defer to you as a player after a heartbreaking, difficult loss. How do you right the ship and prevent things from declining any more than they already have?
I mean, at this point, when we talk about a team, we have to recognize a team is made up of individuals, right? And this is a standpoint where all the individuals need to take a look in the mirror, coaches and players included, and figure out what do we want to make the rest of the season look like. And that comes from, I hate to say the cliche, a 1-0 mentality on a day-to-day basis, but that has to be a little reshaped to where we can't just rest on like, hey, we go 1-0 and we're going to take it this way. So I think intensity needs to increase a little bit and people need to challenge themselves. And that's across the board. So, I'm always like on the individual basis and helping teams grow because it's a group of individuals, but this is a time where the individuals need to take a gut check and look in the mirror, not point fingers, and bring your lunch pail so that you perform the way that you need to perform.
And James Franklin spoke this past Monday to that point about not pointing fingers, and he's seen in the past in a variety of different stops in this sport instances where the offense can start pointing fingers at the defense, vice versa, or just even internally within your own unit. But he said, this is a resilient group. Our guys battled and played really hard against UCLA. We didn't play smart, but we battled. Is there hurt in the locker room? Yes. We have to tune out the noise and focus on getting better. But ultimately, he repeated it many, many times. It starts with me. And James Franklin said, quote, I have a shared responsibility where it's between myself, the coordinators, the assistant coaches. We're in a results-oriented business. It's my job to hold everyone accountable, including myself. He fielded a lot of questions on Monday where he didn't exactly answer them. And part of that was attempting to not throw anyone under the bus or create excuses. And I think to a degree, some of that was backpedaling from some of the comments that he said immediately after the UCLA game, specifically pointing towards the absence of Tony Rojas, who was lost to a long-term injury last week, and the inability to really utilize a QB spy against Nico Iamaleava, and then Anthony Donko dealing with injury, being shuffled in and out of the lineup, TJ Shanahan taking his place at right guard and actually playing well, but Nolan Rucci struggled at right tackle. That's a situation where the Anthony Donko were healthy. We saw how well he played at right tackle last year. So I think James Franklin kind of took a few lessons from how he reacted on Saturday and tried to put them into place on Monday. But the more that you review the tape of this UCLA game, Justin, I don't know if I've ever seen a systemic failure like this from Penn State football. There is not enough time in the day to analyze everything. And it was something James Franklin even talked about it. He said, I can't go into specifics because there's something on every play that went wrong. And I defer to you as somebody who has been on this coordinating staff once upon a time. You've been a front office executive. You've worked with LIG Sports Group. You've been a player. You've been on every side of this. But when it's that vast, is it as simple as like, oh, we just get back to fundamentals and technique and coaching and footwork and all those mechanics?
I think there's first a gut check, right? I think there's a coming to Jesus moment, and they're like, hey, what are we doing? And again, I think that's what I was referring to. The individual takes a look in the mirror. I mean, obviously, as the leader of the organization, I think you have to force everyone to look in the mirror, including yourself. But yeah, when it's a breakdown like that, and we have a game, like just for example, as a player, we get blown out. It's just like, man, sometimes you just want to throw that film away and be like, hey, amnesia, I don't want to remember it, because like if you go in there trying to fix every little detail that happened in that game, you're almost entering like just a negative, stinking thinking of like all these players now, like I guess reliving all their mistakes in the sense of like, oh, these are the mistakes that I can make, and then trying to overcompensate by like making those corrections and then not happening. Then now you have a team that's playing real tight. All this stuff can be alleviated if came out and performed last week. But with that being the case, sometimes when you have disappointing losses like this, I almost wish it was a blowout, because like that's when you can throw away. That's when you can throw away the film. But the fact that it was close and winnable, that's a tough space to be in, because like as bad as they played, they had a chance to win. Like they had a chance to still pull it out at the end. And the fact that the way that it ended was on like amateur hour with the jet sweep and things of that nature. I think there's a lot of different ways to go, but this is a unique situation in this standpoint, because I don't think you can just throw this film away. I think there's like teachable moments where we have to correct this and we have to move forward. Now it's going to be up to the team's motivation and emotions and all the things that they do, where it's like, don't pack it in on the individualism type standpoint, but like, hey, come together and finish the season off right, because I mean, that UCLA shit was embarrassing, and they need to all recognize that. And I think once we can all settle and not point fingers like I suck, you suck, we can't suck anymore, and then we keep it moving.
I can only imagine what lettermen like yourself and others feel after this type of game, and we've seen a lot of comments on social media to that point. On the offensive and defensive side of the ball, start with the offense. Say you're in charge of Penn State football. Justin King's the head coach. How do you attempt to make changes to what Andy Kotelnicki and company are doing on offense to change what they've done so far this season? Because it's not been good.
Man, it's interesting, because it's you don't know if it's schematics, or you don't know if it's personnel. But the thing that's like really unique in this day and age of college football is that you got to manage a budget. You pay some players to produce. So if you pay some guys to produce and they're not producing, you're still on the hook for that money, right? And maybe the guys, aren't up to par and stepping in from that standpoint. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't know how much flexibility in personnel there is with the money being distributed and things of that nature. But we got to get some fresh blood and get some guys in there to see like, hey, who's ready to make a play at the end of the day? It's like I don't think we go into the mode of like, hey, there was nothing to lose because we still have to win. I think it was telling to jump onto the defensive side when he said we couldn't have a spy because Tony Rojas was down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's a breakdown. He's talking about his unique speed. I mean, I always talk about speed brings opportunities and how important speed is in a game. And this is a pure example. Yes, you could play linebacker and be a formidable guy, around 4'7", fill the box, drop in your stuff. But when you play a special player like Nico, I'm not going to say his last name.
Yeah.
You play a special player like Nico and you got to play 2-man and you got to have somebody to spy. That's when that 4-3 linebacker like a Tony Rojas comes in and becomes that X factor to be able to take those things out. Those are the matchups that we're talking about in sports. So I'm not going to go into they need to increase recruiting, but we need to figure out what personnel we do have that can play to the best of their ability with some still fire to finish off the season while we still have something to fight for.
I did an interview this week with Sports IQ with Larry Smith, and he was asking, hindsight being 2020, should Penn State have kept Bo Perbula instead of Drew Aller? And to the points you were just saying, from a money standpoint, from a political standpoint, there was never a universe where Penn State was going to let Drew Aller walk and retain Bo Perbula right up into the college football playoff that we saw last year. That was never going to happen in a realistic world. Can you sit here now on, October 8th and say, yeah, Bo Perbula's having a great year at Mizzou? It's apples to oranges, those sorts of things. But I think there's a friendlier scheme offensively for Drew Aller because I do not think he was the problem against UCLA. He fought his butt off. Offensive line has got to figure out some solutions. TJ Shanahan, I thought, played a solid game. Nolan Rucci's got to figure his stuff out. Anthony Donko, you'd love to see him get healthy, but I wouldn't hate seeing Cooper Cousins, and I wouldn't hate seeing him at center. Love Nick Dawkins. Appreciate everything that he's done for the team, but it's been real inconsistent from that position, the interior of the offensive line thus far this season. And you and I talked about in the offseason is that, like 3 transfer wide receivers, bright, shiny toys, a lot of money thrown at them, to your point. What have you done? What have you done for us so far this season? Give me Kobe Howard. Give me Tyser Denmark. Let's just see. Try something different. And then, oh, by the way, give 13 the rock more than 10. It's not that hard. Katron Allen is having a far more productive year. And I was infuriated, Justin, hearing Monday that James Franklin said, we talked before and after the UCLA game and said we have to get Katron more touches. How does that happen?
I mean, it's tough because like football is one of the most intricate puzzle pieces to put together, and it's simplified across the board, right? Like there's so many variables when you talk about what's happening at the guard, tackle position, the X factors on that exterior of the line, the receivers, the DBs, and like the different nickels and how the quarterback fits in. But what I'm saying is like every piece can shine when they're in the right environment, right? So we talk about a Bo Perbula, like, yeah, that's the identity when you see like this kid being a backup quarterback in a system that maybe wasn't fit for him. And then maybe it was, but maybe and then go into a place where it's like they're building the whole system convincingly around him and seeing what happens. And that's what you see a lot of times with quarterbacks and success in the future. But I was talking to a friend, talking to somebody, and just how to win in football, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I've talked about this plenty of times, but it comes down to the unique alignment that you create within your organization, from strategic talent acquisition to economic impact. When I say economic impact, how much are you charging people coming to the games? You talk about that fan emotional equity, like all those different type of things build a sports organization. So when we think about where Drew fits into the Penn State space, I guess, like he was a highly touted quarterback that, we had a lot of expectations for. So it's tough because it was built up around him, but I don't think that the pieces that like the coaches are putting him in or the position they're putting him in is like just best for him. I mean, that's just like the basic alignment of it. But they have to figure out what their alignment is. It goes back to the identity. That's what I'm saying a lot to say. everything needs to be in alignment, and there's more than one way to get in alignment. Just make sure that everybody's on that same line. But we can't have half of the people on this, hey, we're a run football team, and then half the people is this exotic, this, that, and the third. Like, can't be split, right? And then we have to find those, I say trill players, like not real, but like trill. We talk about tough and real players, guys that just have some grits to them. Because like, I don't know if we have too much skill and not enough trill. You know what I mean, on the team. And like, and I don't, and maybe that's something that they need to figure out internally from a personnel standpoint, how they acquire talent from, you know, from a high school or from the transfer portal, and like what critical factors or what positional traits, character traits are valued and need to be devalued versus the outcomes we're looking for. I think that's where we got to start getting to, because for him to bring up a personnel issue at the end of the game on the defense and that being a major decision or major factor of their offense scoring 42 points was Nico running around all day, then I just would have never thought like a personnel issue that would show up from a toughness standpoint or ability standpoint. You know what I mean? Against a 0-4 UCLA team.
A lack of depth at linebacker U is embarrassing. And if you did not get Amari Campbell in the spring transfer portal window, getting onto campus late, you would be screwed at that position, because Dom DeLuca was in and out of the lineup. He didn't have a great game against UCLA. The next guys that James Franklin is talking about at linebacker are freshmen, underclassmen, Anthony Specca and Cam Smith, who is a true freshman. Like, that's embarrassing that Keon Wiley's not even mentioned. And that's, again, I trust Jim Knowles to evaluate the talent, but clearly this defense is not playing to the capability that it could. We thought this was a national championship caliber defense for the first handful of weeks of the season, especially the way they played against Oregon. So it's not to say they can't get back to that level, but Northwestern is going to be a gut check for a lot of different reasons. James Franklin, ironically enough, and it was pointed out by our friend from statecollege.com, the great Mike Poorman, at the end of his Monday press conference, James Franklin forgot to give his Northwestern scouting report at the top of his Monday press conference. He has never done that. And Mike Poorman reminded him of that. And you and I were talking about this before we came on the air. If that is anything, that tells you exactly how messed up James Franklin and this Penn State football team is right now. What did you think?
Yeah, I think that's pretty telling. I mean, James is a creature of habit. I mean, he's one of the more structured, organized coaches, I mean, in the country, or even that I've been around in my career. I've been around some top guys, right? Some guys have different ways. Again, more, that's how I say there's more than one way to skin a cat. But yeah, I think him not going over the initial scouting report is a little telling, right? It means it's a shell shock. It's a confirmation of a shell shock. Like, oh, whoa, like we have to figure this out, because like you could tell that they weren't expecting that to happen. They weren't expecting that the guys they weren't expecting that to show up on the field. And to be completely honest, man, like the way that they played the week before at Oregon, like I wouldn't have expected it either. They can even play that way. And it's something as a player, I think that's angst, right? Where it's like I always had that fear. I mean, whether I was always confident in my abilities, but like you see somebody play a terrible game, like, yo, what are they thinking? Like, you know, like you watch Space Jam and they got somebody in their body, it's like, oh, everything is going wrong. You know what I mean? That was like almost my biggest fear. Is like, yo, what if I'm like and I just stumble and I like just something that you can't explain. And it seemed like that was everybody at Penn State on Saturday.
You know, I can only speak for myself on this. There's a lot of choir boys and there aren't a lot of monstars. There aren't a lot of dogs. No, I'm being dead serious. Like, there's a lot of guys that's like, man, they just seem like nice guys. There's nobody on that field. Like Abdul Carter, dog. Like Parsons, dog. Like dudes who want to rip your throat out. It was it was uninspired against UCLA.
Hey, that's a fair point, man. I guess that's what I said. Too much skill, maybe not enough trill. But like you said, like real dogs. And I guess that's what I'm getting to. Even from the evaluation, like, yo, are we playing with show dogs or are we playing with real ones? You know what I mean? And that's where the evaluation comes. Because if he didn't, like the thing, like you said, when he mentioned not feeling comfortable putting in backup linebackers, then I'm looking at the linebackers like, bruh, if the coach has a chance to say that in front of everybody, like, what are y'all doing? Like, again, I'm on the player, because coach want to do it. The coach has to coach. Coach has to deal with the media. Coach has to deal with the fans. They got to make their strategic calls. But like at the end of the day, there's some non-negotiables that has to show up. Like, you're not fast enough, physical enough, smart enough, understand, like you said, wanting to rip someone's head off. Football temperament is a real thing. And I think a lot of times we get into this college space and it's like trying to put sugar on shit in the standpoint of what we're watching, right? Like, oh, these guys need to be nice. This is like this. It needs to be, buttoned up. We're success with honor. It's like, yeah, somebody's going to punch you in the mouth. You know what I mean? Like, and what are you going to do back? And at the end of the day, like, you have to have a bunch of guys that are okay with punching back or punching first. Not even punching back, punching first, right? And those guys that you walk through the hallway and it's like they make you a little uncomfortable. You have to be okay with that. And that's the talent management of a football team. It's a very unique universe and ecosystem. It doesn't fit within corporate America. It doesn't fit within the law. It doesn't fit within anything. It's a universe and ecosystem of its own. And if you don't buy into it, man, you'll look like a sucker and you won't get the results that you want if you don't buy into what this sport actually is. And that gets back to what you were saying, but the finding the real dogs in there.
It's there's just so many things to attempt to correct from last weekend.
I mean, it seemed like it was a pretty simple game plan, right? And it sucks that I don't know if it was a schematic switch up, right? Like sometimes if it's a personnel issue or if guys aren't playing physical or they're not playing fast or they're not like, there isn't a right call. There isn't a right call for a lack of physicality. Like there isn't. Like I don't care what you call. Like in defense, like I'm like so strongly view it this way, where it's like, the call doesn't have to be perfect. Like the schematics don't need to be anything. You need speed, violence, and length, right? At the end of the day, and guys that understand fits and how people are attacking them. And from that standpoint, if we don't have speed and violence, I mean, I don't care what Jim Knowles calls. You know what I mean? So like even from some of the things that I've seen him call last week, whether it was, some of the passes, but it seemed like individuals were losing their matchups. I don't know if they were wrong calls, right? Unless it's just, you got to know your personnel. But like this was like one of the first games that they maybe got a different attack with the running. I mean, Neuheisel, OC calling a nice little plays. And that is another like caveat that I'll give grace to
Penn State.
No, not even Penn State, but just the defense coordinator. Like from the standpoint of when you get a new OC the week of that's never called a game, that is extremely hard to do.
True.
Like, because you don't have any type of bead on what's going on, especially like the rhythm and stuff and like how you chart out a game plan. It doesn't excuse giving up 40 points. It doesn't excuse the way those guys came out and played. But if you come out playing with your hair on fire, man, a lot of those things, like there was missed tackles, there's guys getting beat one-on-one blocks, not keeping contained, getting pushed out of their hole, like simple, basic football that you learn in midget football. I don't think a $2 million coordinator fixes that besides getting new people. And I'm not trying to blame it on the players or anything of that nature, but I don't know if calls were wrong. It's like things weren't executed.
Yeah. One thing I noticed against UCLA, not sure if you saw the same thing, I saw as the game went on, Zakee Wheatley was brought down closer and closer to the line of scrimmage, and that they would have two high safeties, probably I'd say 15 yards from the line of scrimmage, and then Zakee was kind of playing center field, almost about 10 yards back. And I don't know if that was the move by Jim Knowles to make up for the fact that you don't have Tony Rojas, you don't have a QB spy. Is there the potential that Zakee Wheatley has to not outright change positions, but be more of a linebacker going forward? And do you think that's the answer? Is that his game?
I mean, is it his game? Probably not.
He's not Jaquan Brisker, but he's a hell of a safety. So I don't know.
I like Zakee. And again, and I'm getting into like how I advise players.
Square pegging around a hole to a degree.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, he's a center field playmaking type of guy that can run around and like, but to force him to be in the box and just tackle, I don't know if that's to using his strengths or his traits to the best of the ability of the team. For the need of the team, yes, right? But like, because there's something that's deficient up front, right? Well, there's a deficiency that you have to correct. So like when you find yourself in those type of situations, again, back to that puzzle piece, none of the pieces fit if some of the other pieces are off, right? And so you put him out of position from that standpoint. I mean, I think he can do it, but I think there's a difference between being able to accomplish it and then doing it at a championship level. Can you win a championship or win all your games with him playing in the box and not stopping the run or getting penetration up front where the running back has to make a decision at the line of scrimmage or a yard back behind the line of scrimmage? Like those critical details in football matter extremely. Yeah, I mean, but
And I mean, I'll end on this because the defensive line did not play a great game. Obviously, they got gashed in the run game. A lot of that was a QB run, but there was no pass rush. Granted, there wasn't a lot of time to get a pass rush. So the points I've said before, Nico was getting the ball out in roughly 2 seconds. Dante Moore was doing about the same thing. There is no Abdul Carter on this defensive line. For as much as we think of Denai Dennis-Sutton, he does not have that top end ability that Abdul has. He's still an outstanding defensive end. Zane Durant and Denai Dennis-Sutton can't do everything on their own, but neither of them had a perfect game against UCLA. The depth behind them is a huge question. I am very curious to see what they do at defensive end opposite Denai Dennis-Sutton. I don't think Zariah Fisher had a bad game, but he didn't have an effect on this game by much. Chaz Coleman also tried to get involved in this game. Didn't have much of an effect. And again, credit to UCLA. The way that they executed, the ball was out quickly enough that it didn't matter what the defensive line did. So Jim Knowles and company are going to have to come up with some answers. There's all these times, Justin, you and I have done this show, and we look at an opponent and we look at a matchup and we're like, oh, this feels like a winnable game for Penn State. I would have said that a week ago, and now I just have no idea which Penn State football team we're going to get this Saturday. I believe Jim Knowles and Andy Kolnicki and James Franklin probably feel the same way. And they went from the second or third best odds to win the national championship to now plus 4,500 on FanDuel. Ohio State is plus 430 for comparison. So I believe Penn State is 17th best odds in the country to win the national championship at this point. That's out the window. At this point, you have to win out if you want to make the college football playoff. And I'm done saying Penn State can credibly contend for the national championship. The end of the line, I have no idea where that will be. And that's extremely disappointing and heartbreaking, I know, for a lot of Penn State football fans.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by FanDuel.